Uh, is this Russell?
Yes.
All I see is a white screen.
Yeah, all I can see is a
Yes.
white
Okay.
screen as well.
Okay.
All right, everybody, we are live. So welcome to the Global Star Party for the Western Hemisphere, I guess, is what we're calling this one. So welcome. We're going to kind of go through a little bit of an introduction of everybody on the call that's going to be talking tonight. Most of everybody on the call is clouded out, if not everybody is clouded out. So we're just going to be showing some of the images that we've all taken the last couple weeks and some of the shots that people have uploaded to the page. So we're just going to kind of go through a virtual star party since we don't actually have any stars to show you tonight. So Paul, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about you?
He,
Or, all right.
I don't think he has a mic, does he? Does he
Okay.
have a mic?
Well,
And
Paul's a contributor that lives in New Zealand, so he is kind of the upside down astronomer, is what he's known as, because of most of his images that he takes and posts look upside down to us people in the northern hemisphere. So if he comes back, I'll give him a chance to talk and introduce himself. But Paul's a really, really good astrophotographer, and some of his solar images are really, really amazing. Russell, want to give a little bit of introduction to yourself?
Hi, I'm Russell from Nova Scotia. Do
Great.
mostly planetary photography, just starting out with some deep sky.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one you're showing right now. Of course, that's David Moog's. That's not your shot that you're sharing.
No, yeah, that's from the
All
flickr
right,
page.
I just noticed that. All right, Stephen Ron. Stephen, are you there?
Hey, how's it going?
Hello.
Yeah, I'm Stephen, and I live currently in central Georgia, in Macon, Georgia. I used to live up in North Georgia, not too far from Daniel, and I sort of specialize, I guess, probably say wide field type astrophotography.
Yeah, great. And Stuart.
Hi, I'm Stuart Foreman. Live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I do pretty much exclusively deep sky imaging, and I spend a lot of time uh, processing and learning about processing, and specifically PixInsight. And I basically spent the last better part of a year trying to master that program.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I haven't even started looking at that one yet. All right, hello everybody. I'm Daniel Herron. I'm the host for this evening. I live in just north of Atlanta, Georgia, in Canton. Stephen and I used to live a little bit closer, so we've observed and gone out and set up our scopes quite a few times together. The most recent one was last weekend, actually. So even though he's south of Atlanta, I'm north of Atlanta. The lucky part is the best place to observe near this area in the southeast is almost about the same distance drive for us. So we usually get together and do some imaging. Some of the imaging that we've done, we'll show you in the next hour, because we did a lot of imaging last weekend. We had a really good night last weekend. So we're going to show and share some of those images, since we can't really show you anything right now through the scopes. We're all under clouds here, but it's actually kind of interesting that we're kind of all under clouds, seeing as how spread out we are. I mean, me and Steven's in Georgia. We have a guy from Nova Scotia, a guy out in San Francisco, a guy in New Zealand, and apparently there's just clouds over top of every single one of us right now. So luck of the draw, I guess. It's a weekend. What can you do? So right before we joined, we were talking about the upcoming solar eclipses. So let's just finish that little conversation. Let me try to share this again. Let me know. There we go. So everybody can see that screenshot?
Yep.
So there's two upcoming solar eclipses. The reason why we were kind of talking about this is because there was just one this last week in Indonesia that some people got some really cool shots of and posted. We'll show you some of those that got in earlier. There were also some really cool shots. I know NASA was broadcasting it live so that people in the rest of the world could see it. So that was kind of cool. So what's interesting of note about this map is you have the August 2017 one that's coming up, fastly approaching. That's really going to do a nice path across the United States. I mean, we're starting in Oregon and it's going to go down through South Carolina. And seeing as how we really haven't had a total solar eclipse in the U.S. That was visible for about 30 years, actually more than 30 years. I think it was in the 1970s. This is, a lot of people are waiting for this one. There's a lot of a great deal of population that it's going to go over, especially when it gets over into the East Coast areas and right along the West Coast when it starts. There is a really good book that I purchased and have read a couple times already that really goes into detail. A couple guys went out and actually traveled the path and took pictures and talked to locals, and it's a really good detail and weather prediction. It seems like the Oregon, Idaho, Wyoming area right over here seems to be about their best bet weather-wise, based on historical trends. The southeast in August is not necessarily the best place to be weather-wise, so I think a lot of us are planning on traveling elsewhere. What's interesting about these two paths is you have the 2017 path, which is, you can tell by this image, is narrower, and the 2024 path is a little bit wider, so it's going to be a little bit more visible to a wider area as it passes over. But what's really cool of note, I think, is this one point right here where both these eclipse paths overlap. So the lucky people that are right around that area will get two of them within a 7-year time frame, which is pretty cool considering we haven't had one for almost 40 years in the U.S. So I have heard rumors that hotels along the path are already booking and have pretty much sold out. So keep that in note. If you're thinking about traveling someplace, you might want to try to start, traveling and booking.
I screen shared that book you're talking about. I have it also.
Yeah, there it
is. It's really quite good. It's a print-on-demand book, and they also run the NASA. There's a NASA website where they have an interactive map, and it's the same two guys.
Yeah. It's a really cool book. I mean, it's got detailed maps. It's got detailed, discussions that they talked with local people. Some of the conversations are pretty interesting about, some people showed up and said this was going to be an awesome farm to see it from, and the guy was like, "Oh yeah, well, I've already had people contacting me and asking me about it, if they can show up." And yeah, it's really a good book if you're looking at getting information about the upcoming solar eclipse. So,
but the moral is just start thinking about it now if you're planning on doing
Yeah.
it, because I went hunting for places yesterday, and there were several places that were already sold out. But there are places that are still open that you can find. You just sort of have to look on the map and do a little hunting.
right. So, all right. So enough solar eclipse talk. We'll have some pictures that we'll show earlier. Let me go through. I haven't seen that Paul's back, so let's go over to. Let's just start with the list here. Russell, you have the floor. So I think everyone can see. It looks like he's sharing a shot of Jupiter right now. Not
Yeah,
live.
that one was shot back on the 10th at 1:30 in the morning. With the 4 moons.
Oh yeah, you can
Good
see one
scene.
way over at the bottom right. I almost missed that one. Yeah, that's nice.
What are you using to process?
Auto stacker 2.
Are you doing any additional processing to it, or just when the native that's coming out of that, like any wavelength processing or anything like that?
I'll shoot the moons in one frame and the planet in another because of exposure differences, and blend them together in GIMP. Then take them into RegiStacks and we'll stack them both in auto stacker first, and do a little processing and then into RegiStacks. So I use everything pretty much.
But it sounds like you're trying to go the free software or use the freeware a little bit more than paying for Photoshop or PixInsight, which a lot of people do because some of those programs are really expensive. And then, there's a lot that you can do with those. I mean, that's what I like to tell people. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned those, Russell, because there are a lot of good free applications out there, especially for people who are just getting into it and getting started, that can really do some really good work without having to spend a lot of money on software. Do you use pip before you put them in AutoStacker, or do you just dump them in AutoStacker and let it do its thing?
Just dump them.
Okay. I always use pip first just to align all the images. Pip is a really good application. I think it stands for Planetary Imaging Processing Program or something like that. But it's PIPP. It's free as well. And what's really cool about pip is if you have a telescope that doesn't track, you can still get video of Jupiter or the moon tracking through the telescope. Just take a video as it goes through the telescope. And pip does a pretty decent job of taking those individual frames and aligning them. So even though you can't track, you can just let the object drift through the field of view, get the video of it, and then put it through pip, and then pip will stack them so that you can then put them in auto stacker or something like that.
I thought auto stacker will do that too. Does it not do it as well?
I haven't had very much luck with it. I guess it also depends on what output your camera does, because my Canon camera puts things in MOV, and AutoStacker won't look at an MOV file, so at least pip converts it to AVI so that I can put it into AutoStacker.
I see.
So I mean, there's lots of different ways to skin that cat. But I always like to mention it because if you're just thinking about getting started in astro imaging, but you don't have tracking mount, you don't have money to dump into software, you can just stick a camera on a telescope and even without tracking learn how to take some pretty good images, and that's how I started. That is a really nice. So it doesn't like the red spot was in the view at that point, but that's a really nice shot of Jupiter. At least it's a good cloud detail.
Yeah.
All right, Stephen, let's switch over to you. Oh yeah, I remember this shot.
Okay, so yes, this was last week ago, last Saturday night. And this was taken at the Deer Lake Astronomy Village, which is in the eastern part of Georgia, about 100 miles east of Atlanta, and it's a really great place to observe if you're in that area. And what we're looking at here is this was sort of earlier in the evening when we still had quite a few clouds present. And for this shot, I used a Canon 7DD, just on a tripod, no tracking, and I used an 8mm fisheye lens. And because it's such a wide lens, I think Stuart mentioned it looked kind of like an all-sky camera. It's 8mm in focal length, which means that I can go pretty long for a single exposure. And I want to say this is 30 seconds of exposure time. And I basically just pointed the camera south on the tripod, and you can see quite a sort of the winter circle features. You got Orion, you got Sirius. You got Gemini up there as well. You got the Pleiades, even in the upper right corner. And over on the far left in the clouds, the bright object there, that's actually Jupiter as it was coming up there. And Leo sort of right above that. So this is another way that a lot of people get into astrophotography is if they don't have a telescope, you can use a DSLR with a wide-angle lens on just a nice sturdy tripod and start shooting 20, 25, 30-second exposures, and you can get some really nice features like this.
Yeah, that's really nice image. Yeah, and when I was out there with Stephen when he was taking this shot, and it wasn't until about midnight or 1 o'clock that the clouds finally went away and stayed away for most of the night. But in a shot like this, the clouds always have their add a special extra little effect to them that's really nice. The one thing about this site, though, is if there are clouds in the area, it does brighten the sky quite a bit. It is a nice dark site when there aren't any clouds. That's a really good shot. I like the color too. I mean, you can tell that Betelgeuse and Aldebaran are red as well, and Sirius and Rigel are bright blue. So it really did the color there.
Yeah, it's a beauty.
Once you adjusted the white balance after your first shot, Stephen. I remember your first shot looked like the sky was on fire. It was so orange. I think you had the ISO at like 7,000.
Yeah, I had previously been shooting some sunset.
No, the white balance. Sorry, the white balance, not the ISO.
Yeah, I'd previously been shooting some sunset, so I had the color, the temperature, and the white balance somewhere in the 7,000 to 8,000 K range. So yeah, it did look like the sky was on fire after the first shot there. So quickly
and
made that adjustment to more of a normal. I want to say this is maybe around 3,400 or so.
Yeah, that's usually the sweet spot that I like to do. And for those of that might be listening or watching that aren't sure what these numbers are we're talking about, usually the lower the number, the bluer the sky, the higher the number of your white balance, the redder the sky. So if you're taking sunset shots, you really want to get in the 8,000, 9,000, maybe even 10,000 range, depending upon your conditions. But that makes everything really, really red and orange. But if you move it down to the 3,000, 3,400 range for the night sky, I find that you get a nice blue color, black, grayish blue color, without losing any of the colors of the stars. And that's usually what I try to shoot at.
Do you guys shoot in RAW?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, I know you can adjust it later in RAW, but I like to get into the habit of trying to do as much in the camera as I can.
Sure.
Yeah, this was obviously.
And sometimes I'll shoot in RAW and JPEG. Just so I at least have the quick JPEG that I can look at and maybe post onto Facebook a little bit quicker or something like that if I see something really interesting. So I like to try to get all the settings right in the camera.
Yeah, this was obviously shot in RAW, and this was completely edited in Lightroom here, Adobe Lightroom.
Yeah. All right, Stuart, let's switch over to you. What do you got here?
This is the Christmas tree cluster in Cone Nebula.
Mm-hmm.
I have sky limiting conditions in that I have a street light that's right across the street, and the street light it used to be kind of those kind of yellow kind, but they had a very bright white LED street light. So this was kind of an experiment to see, did the city screw up my imaging altogether? And so I shot the Christmas tree as that it's framed pretty well in my camera, and I wanted to see kind of what I was able to do with it. Now this is obviously extensively processed in PixInsight, just in that I had really severe gradients, especially in the green, and I had to run through a couple rounds of gradient reduction in each channel. But once I was able to kind of get rid of the gradient, it turned out reasonably well, I think, and I'm happy with the blue and the yellow color in it. My camera, I have a QSI 683. This is an 8300 KAF chip at f7 on 140 millimeter refractor, and I run it on an astrophysics mount. It's about I want to say 10 hours of total data, maybe a little less, but that's probably about what it is. I'd have to count it up exactly, but that kind of more or less in that ballpark.
And is that 10 hours? I mean, are you taking it straight in color, or are you taking red, blue, green, and luminance?
Yeah, this is total LRGB, and
okay.
So it was kind of 10 hours, kind of roughly divided in 4 filters, and I say roughly because I had to throw out probably I want to say about a fifth of the subs because they were subpar, and that's one of the things that people don't realize, that you think you got all this data, so you want to use, let's say you got 4 hours of data, but if you have, say, an hour of that data or half an hour of that data, which is really crap, you're going to do your image a disservice by actually putting it in. So if you get rid of all the bad images before you do your stacking, you'll end up with a better product. And PixInsight obviously has ways to do that, and other programs also have ways to do that in terms of rejection and deciding what it is you want to keep, what it is you don't.
Yeah, that's a really nice image. I mean, you can tell that the effort and the time that you put into it really shows through there. I mean, that's the nebulosity and the colors of the stars all look good.
Yeah, thanks. The color is reasonably native. I didn't really do any color manipulation to it. It just, boosting saturation. I did suppress some greens, and I did suppress a little bit of red in the background. Paul told me to, and so it's all Paul's fault. But other than that, the color is pretty native. I've just started to play with narrowband, which is obviously completely false color, and I'm no good at
Right.
it yet.
Yeah. I want to switch over to Paul. He says he's there. He doesn't have any audio, but I think he has a solar image to show us. So this is one image. I can't really tell you too much about it, and we can't hear Paul, but I just wanted to let him share some images. So this is Paul, like I said earlier, is a really good solar imager.
It's yesterday's. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you got it.
Yeah, hydrogen alpha sun, so you can really see the prominences off the side of it. Some of the detail on the surface. It's a really cool shot.
Yeah, I've been doing a little bit of reading on these scopes like Paul uses, and the hydrogen alpha scope, it's tuned to allow you to see the atmosphere around the sun. So you mentioned the prominences, little flares, like in the upper right and over the very right-hand side. A lot of us use what we call a white light filter when we do solar observing, which blocks 99.9% of the light, but it doesn't let you see the atmosphere like these hydrogen alpha scopes do. And the company that makes this particular scope is Lunt. Lunt and Coronado are sort of the two major players in the solar astronomy field. And Paul is, as you can see, just outstanding in not only acquiring the data but processing it and bringing out all the details that you see. This is just really first-class stuff here.
Yeah. And it gives you something to do during the day. So what else are you going to look at?
True.
Well, an earthquake knocked his mount out of alignment, and he's too lazy to put it back in alignment, so all he's going to do is solar anyway. Yeah.
Okay. All right, switching over to my screen. Let me try to share a couple of my images here. Let me know when and if you guys can see this.
Yeah, I got it.
Yep.
All right, so this is kind of what I like to do when it's a little bit too cloudy to observe. This was actually us last weekend. This white car over here is Steven's car, and this car over here is red, and no one's at it. You can tell there's no lights around it because we weren't over there. So this is when we were setting up. We've gotten set up, and we're just waiting for the clouds to move out. So I set my camera up looking north. And just made sure we were in the shot, and I just took about, I think it was over the course of 45 minutes, I took 30-second exposures and then just put them together using a Star Stacker software called Star Stacks, and that allows you to create these trails. Normally they would be perfect arcs, but because of clouds and stuff moving in, it kind of made them look like dots. And then all the red lights that we were using to observe over here kind of illuminated. If you zoom in a little bit, you can kind of make out people here looking through the scope, kind of like ghost images of us looking through the scopes. So, and the reason why we're all over here with Steven and his equipment was because I wasn't using my camera because I was taking this picture. So I didn't have my camera hooked up to my scope. So we were just, but basically at this point, just playing around and running the alignment checks and everything on our scopes. So while we were waiting to do that, I just got some of these star trail shots. And if you find my page on YouTube, you can actually, I create videos as well, so you can actually see the star trails happening. And I've gotten some over there where I've set up my camera all night, and so I got like 7 or 8 hours of some star trail shots, and those are really fun to do. And then again, that's something you can do with just a camera and a tripod and a relatively decent lens. This is a 14 millimeter. Kind of fisheye lens that I had on the scope or on the camera. So you just set it on a tripod, get to intervalometer, which is basically controls your camera. So you tell it to take a picture however often you want to, and set the settings on your camera, and just tell it to go. And really, I usually just do it until the battery runs out on the camera. But this one I stopped it because I wanted to take my camera and put it on my telescope to catch some of the other shots that I'll show you here in a bit. So really cool you can do. And these pictures drive the flat earthers crazy. Every time I post one of these on Google Plus, the flat earthers just start yelling at me that I'm a NASA conspiratist and
Really?
and everything. Oh yeah, definitely, absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. I can't believe there are actually people out there that believe that. When it did clear up, though, I got some shots like this. It was a very galaxy-friendly night. So this is the Sombrero Galaxy. This is, let me scroll down here. Oh, put it in here. I think that's probably about 21-minute exposures stacked.
That's nice.
And,
what's your image scale there?
Yeah, I don't really know.
What's your scope and camera? Then?
It's a 8-inch SCT, Celestron SCT, and this one I did not have my focal reducer on, so it's it's an 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope using my Canon 60D digital SLR.
No.
And I'll just kind of go through a couple of mine real fast, and then I'll move on to everyone else for the rest of the session.
Nice.
But this is the Pinwheel Galaxy, and there's another little galaxy over here you can see.
That was also 1 minute
Nice.
shots?
I believe so. Let me see. Yeah. 8 60-second shots. And dark frames. And then the Pinwheel. Or not Pinwheel, the Whirlpool. It's a really cool one. I was kind of taking pictures where I could in the clear spots of the sky. So M81 and M82. These barely fit in my scope. This was with the focal reducer. Because without the focal reducer, it would just be a square about this big.
Right.
So, and that's actually this is 20 30-second shots. So I wasn't auto guiding or anything like that, so I had to keep my exposures relatively small. I haven't really got into auto guiding. The Crab Nebula was nice and high, got a little color there. I can see some of the, it's really noisy if you do that, but it's kind of bluish green, bluish red wisp. And then the Leo trio of galaxies. Again with the focal reducer.
Nice.
Oh, and then one non-galaxy object, the Ghost of Jupiter. Planetary nebula. And I actually blew it up here so you could actually see the central star and the little inner ring.
That is really cool.
Yeah, I was surprised how well
That
this
is
came
really
up,
cool.
given how small of an object it is. And
I
it's
Very
called
good.
it's called
Yeah,
it's called the Ghost of Jupiter because it's relatively the same size Jupiter is when you look at it in a scope.
It's good work, especially for 1 minute 30-second subs.
Yeah.
It just now you got me wondering what your image scale is.
Well, I can tell you that with the focal reducer, so an image like this with the focal reducer, the moon would barely fit in this image. So
With the focal reducer.
Yeah, with the focal reducer. So the moon would barely fit in here. So that's about the size of the moon in the sky. That's the area of the sky we're looking at.
I think the focal reducer on that takes you down to about maybe 1,400 millimeter focal length, roughly, Daniel. Is that right?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
What's your focal length without it?
2,000. And it's what? Yeah, I can't remember what the
Takes
calculation
you
is.
from f10 down to f.6.3.
Okay, so at 2,000 you're at 0.44 arc seconds per pixel, and at 1,400 you're at 0.63. All right, well, cool.
All right, let's go through a couple of the shots that some people have posted to the Flickr group, the Global Star Party Flickr group. This is one that Shaharin Ahmad, I hope I'm saying that right. If I'm not, forgive me, took of the solar eclipse in Indonesia. Obviously, he was under some clouds, but he really got some really cool shots. I think the clouds kind of actually add a little bit to it here. So you kind of got the little bit of the beads here, and then as it kind of came out the other side. That is really cool. Can't wait to see that ourselves. Yep.
Very
And
nice.
then here's another one from Paul. Zoomed in on an active region of the sun there. Let's see. Yeah, no real details there. Another one from Paul. I think that's the one he showed us earlier. This is the one I think he's. This is the what the calcium. What's the filter called?
Yeah, calcium K.
Yeah, calcium K filter. Shows a little bit more of the it doesn't really show the atmosphere as well, but it shows more of the surface detail in a different way. Oh, there's a video. I don't know if that's going to work. All right. Richard Collins posted this one of the Flaming Star Nebula. That is really interesting.
Yeah, that looks Hubble narrowband.
Yeah.
Is that Hubble narrowband?
Stuart, would you mind giving a little insight onto what that means when you say the Hubble narrowband?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So there are let me find a band pass, but there are three major filters that people use in narrowband imaging. So hydrogen alpha, sulfur 3, and oxygen. Sulfur 2 and oxygen 3. So let me narrowband filter band width. So when you look at the filters, the filter band passes themselves, the hydrogen alpha is deep in the red, but so is the sulfur, is also in the red. It's just in a different part of the red. Oxygen is in the blue. So if you're just to do the native colors between hydrogen, sulfur, and oxygen, you would basically have a red image, because it would be red, red, and blue. So what narrowband imagers do is they take each of the filters and then they assign a color to it. So, and the colors are completely arbitrary. So sulfur is assigned as green, as red. Hydrogen is assigned as green, and oxygen is assigned blue. So that's called SHO, and that's the classic Hubble palette. And what ends up happening is you end up having green, yellow images. Now I can't read the caption underneath it. It just looks like a Hubble palette on there.
Yeah, he says he's using the SHO palette in Photoshop.
So that's the Hubble palette. Yeah. And so there's actually, there's 6 different combinations. So you can do SHO, you can do HSO, you can do HOS, and you can make all those different combinations. And you can also do any one of a number of different combinations in between. So you can blend them, like put 20% blue, 20% oxygen 3 with 80% hydrogen, and do whatever you want in your red, green, and blue channels. So narrowband imaging is completely artificial in the types of colors that are assigned. You end up getting some cool looking images. The problem is that your stars get all screwed up, because what'll happen with narrowband is you'll end up having very magenta appearing stars, so very purple stars. So what a lot of people do is they'll either desaturate the stars, or they'll take regular RGB image of the same area and then substitute the red, green, and blue stars with the narrowband stars that are there. Does that kind of explain a little bit? So the classic Hubble palette is the SHO palette. So S mapped as red, H mapped as green, O mapped as blue.
Yeah, and one tell I know is if you zoom in on some pictures and start seeing green stars, then you really know that someone's used a weird coloring, because there are no such things as green stars. But this one actually looks really good. The color of the stars. Oh, this is one Wendy posted of Wendy Clark posted of her doing her imaging. She's got some really good images that she's posted before. Oh, here's another one from of the eclipse. really cool.
So if you flip over to me, I can show the band passes here.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, so do you see my mouse? I don't know if you see my mouse, but
Yeah.
Okay, so this is oxygen 3. So this is deep in the blue right here, and here's hydrogen alpha, or maybe this is hydrogen alpha. Can't one or the I think this is hydrogen alpha, and this is sulfur 2. Might be the other way around, but nevertheless, these are both deep in the red here. So if you were to look at the red overlaid, red would come down kind of like so. And so that's why you have to artificially assign the colors to these channels.
Yeah. All right, cool. All right, let me go back to my screen. Let's just look at a couple of some of these images here. Some more of during the eclipse, just a wide-angle shot during the eclipse. More eclipse shots, more Paul Stewart, Mark Forbes with Jupiter. Some good detail. I wonder if he derotated that one. Doesn't say. For those who are wondering what I might be talking about, Jupiter rotates so fast. I mean, it does one full rotation in about 10 hours. And so if you think about how big Jupiter is, that's, and it takes less than, half a day for it to do a day on Jupiter. Half a day on Earth is on Jupiter is about 1 day. So if you take, depending upon what magnification you're using, if you take a 2 or 3 minute exposure of Jupiter, some of the features on Jupiter are going to be blurred because of the actual rotation of the planet during that time once you stack those images. So there's a program called, I know there's different programs, but a lot of people use WinJupos to actually derotate the images, and it counteracts the rotation of Jupiter so that you can get a little more clearer detail. Just one of the things you have to, when you start imaging Jupiter, that you have to start worrying about. That's a nice shot. That's another one. The big W, unofficial. All right, let's switch back over to Paul. Looks like he's got another calcium K shot of the sun there with a sunspot. Maybe he can type in and tell us what active region. Is that the same active region I think he showed us earlier? It looks like the same formation, just at a different angle. He says it's sunspot group 2519. So yeah, like Stephen was saying earlier, if you were to look at this in a white filter, just a regular, cheap, let's just say, solar filter, you would see the just the sunspots. Are you guys seeing the sun? Or are you still? Am I still showing my screen? What are you guys seeing on the screen?
Let's see.
I'm seeing your screen.
All right, let me try this. How about now? Sorry about that. Are you seeing the sun now? Okay. Paul says I'm good, so I guess he's seeing it fine. So yeah, if you were using a white filter on the sun, then you wouldn't see all these little filaments. You would just see a white sun with a black spot right there in the middle. Let's switch back over to Russell. Here's one with the great red spot.
Yeah, that was from the, I believe, the 9th, I want to say.
Okay. Got all 4 moons and the great red spot.
Yeah, the total package.
It's a nice shot.
Shot with a 127 millimeter and a Nex Image 5 camera at 1500 millimeters.
And how long was that video that you were taking?
Yeah.
So how long of a video did you take?
The moons I shoot about 400 frames. Takes about a minute and a half because it's pretty large region of interest. And the Jupiter I shorten the region of interest down because I don't need the whole big frame to put them together. So you usually get about 2,000 frames to 5,000 frames, depending on what kind of night it is, in about 3 minutes.
Okay.
At this resolution, the rotation is really not an issue.
Right. Cool. That's a nice shot. Stephen, what are you showing us? Stephen, you may be muted still.
Oh, okay. Can we see this image I've got here?
I can see it.
Okay. Hope everybody else can. Okay. So this is another wide field shot. It's not nearly as wide as the previous one with the fisheye. This area is a very interesting area of the sky. The sort of orangish star you see in the almost the center of the image, that is Antares. That's the heart of the Scorpius there. And the area right above it is the interesting area is called the Rho Ophiuchi cloud complex. And you can see there are some sort of black areas, and those are dust lanes extending kind of out to the left there. And that object over on the left, kind of where the lanes are extended, that's actually Saturn there. And this image was taken with a 50 millimeter lens with the Canon 70D. But this time I did use tracking for this. I basically put the camera on an equatorial tracking mount, the Celestron AVX, and I did a 2-minute exposure. So this area is looking to the south for where we are, and then down below, down toward the bottom of the left, is getting into where the sort of the core of the Milky Way would be going through there. So this is the Scorpius region, and again right above there with those interesting dark lanes, that's where again the Rho Ophiuchi cloud complex comes into play, and it's kind of hard to, you can sort of see a little bit to the right of Antares. There's another object, and that is Messier 4, which is a globular cluster there in Scorpius also. So wide field is sort of really one of my specialty things, I guess. I really enjoy, shooting these longer exposure but tracked wide field images to really bring out a lot of data. And now this one I did process it in PixInsight initially to do a couple of things, and then did some sort of finishing touches over in Lightroom. I don't know PixInsight nearly as well as someone like Stuart would. I just know a couple of things to do there so far, but once I did those things, I brought it over into Lightroom and kind of tuned it up a little bit.
It's a really cool image.
Beauty. Beautiful.
All right, Stuart, what are you showing us?
This was just, I was just farting around with narrowband color, and this is not a serious image that I hadn't really meant to show, but since we were talking about it, where I was just kind of seeing how much I can push the different levels of color in the image. This is a tricolor narrowband hydrogen alpha, oxygen, and sulfur of the area around the big bright star is Solder that I took last summer, and this was a Hubble mapped SHO, but I did a lot of manipulation with the individual colors to try to pull out subtle differences between the yellows and the greens. And what I did is I turned green into blue, and I moved yellow closer to the green to try to really stretch out the differences on the right side of this image. Solder on the lower left on the original image was bright purple, and I mean just in your face purple. And so what I did was I put a star mask to it and desaturated pretty much all the stars to make it white. But that's not how it came out of the image. But this just is sort of an example of what people can do with narrowband. I don't like this image. I think it's really gaudy, but it's still kind of fun just to see how you can screw around with color and see what comes out with it.
That's cool. All right, let me share this. This is one I took probably about a month and a half ago of the Orion area of the sky as Orion was starting to set. So you kind of get a little bit of white light glow with these clouds that were approaching. But this was with a Canon 60D on a tripod. I wasn't tracking. And I think each image was maybe, I want to say 8 to 10 seconds exposure. And I took about 15 of them and stitched them together to create this big panorama. I was just basically playing. This is what I end up doing when clouds start coming in. I really can't do anything else. Is that just start playing with what the camera can do. So you have Sirius over here, the bright star, and the on the left of the screen, Orion here in the middle, and then the Pleiades kind of over here glowing through the clouds. What was really interesting was just playing with the equipment, and I mean, you can actually see a little bit of the flame and the where the horse head would be and the Orion Nebula, but I was really surprised that the flame came out. You can kind of get a little wisp here of Bernard's loop trying to come out here. I was really pleasantly surprised with the amount of stuff that I did get with an unmodified camera, even with the clouds that were coming in. So doesn't take too much to, I mean, this really wasn't any equipment at all. It was just the camera, the new 50 millimeter Canon lens and a tripod, and just the correct settings on the camera to. And then again, another piece of free hardware or software called Hugin, Hugin, for stitching them together. Did a really good job.
Nice, beauty.
Stitching them. All right, looks like Russell's got some sunspots he wants to show us.
Yeah, you were talking about white light solar. This is an example of a white light solar image.
Yeah, so and what the sunspots are is really areas on the sun that are slightly cooler than the surrounding area. So being slightly cooler, when we show them with a filter, they appear to look black on the through the filters. So they're called sunspots. And sometimes there are a lot of them on the sun. Sometimes there are none on the sun. So it all depends on how active the solar cycle is and where it is in that cycle. Pretty nice shot. Really good detail. And Stephen's got a globular cluster he wants to show us.
Okay, now this one is sometimes mistaken for M13. In fact, I did that when I was labeling the image to upload it to Flickr. Only later did I realize it's actually M3. This is the globular cluster in, I think it's Canis Venatici is the name of the constellation, not one of the more well-known ones, I guess. And this, I was doing some reading on this cluster. It's estimated that there are around 500,000 stars in that cluster, and it's approximately 34,000 light years away, basically on the edge of the galaxy. Sort of a lot of these globular clusters kind of hang out there in the outer parts of the galaxy. And this is a really nice one. It's a little small when you look at it in a telescope, but it really shows up well when you try to image it here. This is I want to say a 4-minute exposure here. I was using my auto guider, and I finally got it to work for the most part the other night, so I was able to get pretty good stars for 4 minutes here. You can also see there's a little tiny galaxy kind of in the upper right quadrant there, kind of the center upper right, a little fuzzy patch there. I'm not sure which galaxy that is, but there's another one kind of hiding back there. So I was pretty pleased with this image for say 4 minutes with the auto guider here.
Yeah, it's really cool. It also looks like there might be another galaxy around the 1 o'clock position. There's a little fuzzy area up there.
Could be indeed.
Maybe
if you plate solve it, you could probably see all the little faint fuzzies that are in there.
Yeah. Yeah, and to Stephen's point earlier, usually the globular clusters are part of the galaxy, but they're not in the plane of the galaxy necessarily with the rest of the stuff. They're kind of in the halo, either above it or below the galaxy. So they tend to be kind of in the in the outer areas of the galaxy, kind of above or below us. Stuart, you had something out there, and now your screen's just black.
Oh, is it? Oh, hang on.
This is what Stuart is seeing outside right now.
Yeah. Let me get it.
Actually, probably not, because the sun's still out over there, right?
Yeah. Let me pull it up. Sorry. Let's see what we got here. There we go. So, you see it now?
Yes.
All right. So this is exactly the same data as my prior one. Remember how my prior one was blue and green? This is exactly the same data, just with a different combination of color. Another one that I hate. I hate this image, just letting you know. But it just now this one, instead of being blue and green, is pink and yellow. And it's all because of the way I map the color. Mm-hmm. And you can see how the star is blue in this one, as opposed to magenta in the other one that I had to desaturate. And this is why narrowband is so hard. That I've been working on just this particular image on and off for several months, trying to get it right, and I haven't gotten it yet.
Cool. Still pretty.
Not ready for prime time.
And since Stephen mentioned it earlier, let me share this. Let me try to share it anyway. Nope, not my email.
Okay, Paul is showing off right now. If you want to pull Paul's image up. I know why he's doing this. He's doing it to embarrass the northern hemisphere astrophotographers, because what he's showing is the granddaddy of all globular clusters there, which is Omega Centauri. So Paul likes to pull this one out whenever any of us show any of our puny little globular clusters. Paul likes to pull this one out and do a lot of bragging here.
Yeah, because it takes quite a bit for us to see it from our location.
Yeah, we get to see it for a few weeks in kind of mid to late spring, although it never gets very high, above the horizon, so we can't really image it very well. But this is just an amazing, amazing cluster, and Paul, of course, does a great job with everything he does, and it just is so much larger than even M13, which is the largest one I believe that we have here. So thanks, Paul, just for reminding us. Yes, we bow to your superior globular cluster that you have in the southern hemisphere.
And just to give you, I was about to share this with everybody. This is a shot of M13 that I took last weekend. And you can see a little galaxy down there as well. So, that's M13. That's the best globular cluster you can really see with any range of success in the northern hemisphere.
We have Andromeda. He doesn't have it, so bleh.
Yeah, that's one we've got. He's got a few others too, but we do have Andromeda. Daniel, I've got one other, if you don't mind. I'd like to show.
Yep, it should be visible now. Whoops. There we go.
Okay. Now Stuart mentioned a couple minutes ago something about plate solving. This is an image I took. This is in Virgo, and basically in Virgo you can just see galaxy after galaxy after galaxy, and there are lots of ways several ways to do what Stuart was describing, plate solving. And one of the easiest ways that I found to do it, I took the image and uploaded it to a site called astrometry.net, I believe it is. And if you upload the image to them, it takes a few minutes once you upload it, they will go through and plate solve it, and all those little green circles are essentially galaxies that they've identified in the image. So if you have any images, you're kind of wondering what all is in your image, it's free to do this. Again, astrometry, astrometry.net will allow you to upload your images there, and it will do this little plate solving feature for you. Stuart, there's some other ways, right, Stuart, that you probably would recommend as well?
Yeah, astrometry.net is probably the easiest. You need the disadvantage is you need internet access to use it. I think there's a way to do it offline. I don't know how to do it. I use a program called PlateSolve 2, and it comes embedded with Sequence Generator Pro, which is my sequencing program. And that works really, really well. There's another free one called Elbrus that I have not used, and then another one called Pinpoint, and I think there are others as well. But the easiest one to use is astrometry.net. And the other thing that it'll do is it will blind solve. And so, I mean, you just sort of dump it in, and it kind of searches all around the sky until it finds it. And it's pretty accurate. It does pretty well. If you're on Astrobin, that's the name of the site, and you upload a picture to Astrobin, they also have an internal plate solver that sometimes works. I have an Astrobin account, but I don't use it much. But when you do upload something, it will show up there.
Okay, Paul is taking one last opportunity to really rub it in here.
Yeah, I was just about to switch to that.
Yeah, Paul's showing this Tanya Schmidt, who's now in South Africa. She married Corey, who used to participate in the virtual star party a while back. This is the same equipment, and Tanya took on the left. That's M13, obviously northern hemisphere. And over on the right, that's her Omega Centauri with the same equipment. And so you can really sort of see how much larger Omega Centauri is than poor old M13 there. So once again, the southern astronomers are just sort of laughing at us a bit here, but that's okay. We understand.
I can't remember. The real question is that what are their actual sizes compared to each other? Is it just that Omega Centauri is that much closer to us? Or is it actually just that larger?
That's a good question. I haven't really looked that one up to see it. Could be, you're right, it could be that it's just closer to us, so it looks larger. I'm not sure if it's really more stars or not, so obviously distance has a huge impact on that, but
yeah.
They don't really care. They just care about that it's bigger. So
let's just do a quick search here. We got a few minutes to kill. All right,
I'm on
so yeah, so am I. We'll see who wins.
Omega Centauri has about 10 million stars, and Hercules has about 300,000 stars. So Omega Centauri wins.
Okay. Yeah. That's a nice cluster. What are the distances, though?
Yeah, hang on. Distance for Omega Centauri is 15.8 kilolight years.
Yeah, M13 is 22.
Yeah, all right. So it's closer.
So it's closer and has more stars.
Yeah.
So you just can't win. But it is an impressive object. I'd love to go see it in person one time down there. Maybe we'll all go visit Paul sometime. Go to the New Zealand Star Party.
Yeah, well, we can crash in his observatory. It's big enough.
Yeah. Since he can't say no to us right now.
Right, exactly.
No audio. We'll just invite ourselves over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He lives in a nice house on a hill.
Okay. Well, I show that it's just about 2 minutes before the hour. Does anyone have any last minute? Stephen, you trying to share something there?
Yeah, last one. This is let's see here. Yeah, this is actually Omega Centauri as seen from the northern hemisphere. This was taken on April 4th, 2 years ago, during that short window we have to see it. And you can see it's very low in the sky. It never got much higher than this. And this is a shot I did with a 135 millimeter lens. It's again looks about the size of almost like a full moon size when you take it. And the trees look blurry because I was tracking This is, I want to say, a 90-second image. You could see it with your naked eye, but with the image, it really shows up very well. It's just really, really impressive. This was taken in North Georgia. I took it over at Brasstown Bald Mountain in northeast Georgia.
That's great.
Nice.
It never gets much higher than that.
Yep. Yeah, we're about 34 degrees latitude here, so it.
Paul says we'll have to charge you for imaging Omega Centauri from the wrong hemisphere.
Yeah. Hey, tell him to try to image Andromeda from where he is.
Yeah.
All right. So I have it at 10 o'clock. So I think that takes up the hour. Thanks, guys, for sharing your images. For everyone watching, sorry we weren't able to give you any live views this week, but the nature of the hobby is with the weather, you do what you can. So I hope that everyone got a chance to enjoy some of our pictures. Please check us out on Google Plus. I think all of us are obviously on Google Plus, so you can look up any of us there and contact us if you have any questions or any follow-ups. You can contact us as well through the Global Star Party page, and find out more about us. There's also a Global Star Party Flickr group that you can join and upload your pictures and share your pictures if you want them, maybe to show up on one of the future star parties. So thanks for everyone for attending, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, bye everybody.
Bye everyone.
See ya.